Hi, welcome back. In this session, we are going to develop our first Mule application as a REST service. REST service is a part of web service. Let's understand first what is web service. A web service is a program which runs in a server and whose results are shareable over network to make data transfer between the applications. We know that, right? What is integration? The process of making data transfer between multiple applications is known as integration. By using web services, we can make the integration. We can develop a piece of a program as a web service, and that will be useful to make the data transfer between the applications. We have two types of web services. Those are SOAP and REST. SOAP services are legacy based applications, that means very older applications, and the development of SOAP services is very less compared to REST because the REST services are very latest and those has lot of new features compared to the SOAP services. The percentage of development of REST services is 95% and SOAP services is 5% because the REST services has a lot of latest features and SOAP services are very old based approach. Then why still we need 5% of development? There are still legacy applications. Those applications or technologies can able to consume only SOAP services. When we want to make integrations with those legacy applications, then we may need to develop the SOAP services. Let's understand about REST services. What is a REST service? A REST service is a lightweight program which runs on the server to make the integrations. Before implementation of REST services, we should understand about URL that we usually interact every day because we interact with REST APIs using URL. Assume I have developed a REST service and how client can interact with my REST service. I will provide a URL to the client so that client can able to consume my REST service. So the REST services communication happens using URLs. We know how URL look like, right? Every day we have been interacting with number of URLs. If you open Chrome and searching something like facebook.com or anything or MuleSoft.com, it opens as a URL. But what URL contains basically? It contains HTTP protocol, then host, then port, then base path and subpath. Let's see an example for this. This is one of the URL. If we are going to develop an application called EMP SAPI and developing one REST service to fetch the employee, then the URL is going to look like this. HTTP protocol, nothing but HTTP or HTTPS, and host. In place of host, we usually have IP address. But for local host systems, we can refer it as local host instead IP address. If I develop this service and if I provide you the URL in place of local host with IP address, then you would able to consume my service if I allow the firewall over the internet. But sharing the IP address is not a good practice. There is a chance of having threat. So to avoid this, these host :port usually replaced with domain names to get the security. So the domain names basically contains host :port. This is one of the URL with domain, and we can see here HTTP protocol, then domain name, then base path, then subpath. In real time, 100% of the times URLs of HTTPS, not HTTP. Since we develop REST services, and those can be consumable over URL over the internet. If we do not have security on top of REST services, then everyone can able to consume those services. If we apply security, then that will be a HTTPS service. The HTTPS service URL look like this. The HTTP protocol has HTTPS and domain name, then base path, then subpath. We should aware of the URL, what it contains. What it contains? It contains the protocol, either HTTP or HTTPS. It contains port. It contains base path. It contains subpath. We should remember this because we are going to develop a REST service. When we develop a REST service, we need to provide the protocol is HTTP or HTTPS. We should provide the host. We should provide the port. We should provide the base path and also subpath. What else we should know about URL? So we have saw how URL look like. Apart from that, URL also contains HTTP method. Those are get, post, update, delete, extra. I will show you what are all the HTTP methods available. What is the significance of HTTP methods? If we wish to get something from the backend using REST service, we can use the get. If we want to post something to the REST service, then we use post. If we wish to do something in the backend related to update operation, then we use update method. In similar way, delete method. Suppose I want to fetch all the patient's details from the diagnostic database. Then I need to develop REST service as a get-based development, get-based REST service, so that the client can able to get the patient's information. Then we discussed already making the data transfer between the application. Nothing but over the REST service we need to transfer the data. Either we will post the data or we will get the data or both. Then how input and output can be sent to the REST URL, and also how we can get the output from the REST URL. That is over HTTP request response we will use HTTP body, and in similar way over HTTP request response we can also pass the data through header. Those are two ways. One way is we can pass the data through header or through body. Through header we will pass the data as headers, query parameters, URI parameters. Through body we will send the data as application/JSON, application/XML or other content types whatever we have. What is the difference between header and body? When to go for HTTP headers and HTTP body? When we want to send a minimal amount of data, we can make use of headers. Through headers, URI params, query params. When we wish to transfer with huge amount of data, we can send over the HTTP request body or response body. What are the content types? Why we need to send the data in the body as a application/JSON or application/XML or any other content type? Since the services have been developed on multiple technologies, how the technologies knows about the data types being used in each technology. Suppose I have one .NET application, I have one Java application. In Java application we have developed a REST service, and .NET application wants to consume the REST service. Then how .NET application aware of Java data types? It don't aware of, right? That is the reason we have some common language being used to make the data transfer. Assume one person knows Japanese, one person knows Chinese. How both can be communicated? By using a common language called English. In similar way, we have common languages are application/JSON, application/XML, text/plain and other content types. Coming to SOAP services, those are only able to make communication over application/XML, which are little bit heavyweight objects, and also those are not able to understandable by front-end scripting languages like JavaScript, AngularJS. Whereas application/JSON mostly used with REST services, and application/JSON content type cannot be used with SOAP services. SOAP services don't support application/JSON. The advantage with application/JSON is that JSON means JavaScript object notation. That means the application/JSON objects or data can be easily understandable by any scripting language. So assume we have Facebook mobile application and web application. Mobile application means whatever the application we use in the mobile. Web application means whatever the application we use over the internet using laptop or systems by using URLs. Then usually we will have backend language. If we develop the backend language as a REST service, the same service can be consumed by web application and also mobile application. Usually mobile applications just calls the REST services. The mobile application don't have complete logic when we install it. If that is the case, it is going to need a lot of memory in the phone. So usually we develop REST services in the backend. Those can be consumed over the mobile applications and web applications. The advantage with REST services is one-time backend development, and those business logic can be consumed by web applications and mobile applications by consuming REST services using content type as application/JSON. That is the reason REST services are becoming very popular. What else we should aware of REST services? Whenever we develop REST services, we make the data transfer over the header or body in the request and in the response, correct? But we also respond 200, 400, 500 based status codes and reasons, like if the post based operation succeeded in the backend, then in the header we will respond back 200 OK. If bad request came, the required input doesn't came over the request, then we will respond back 400 bad request. If something wrong happened in the backend logic, then we respond back it as 500 server error over the response headers. Just we need to remember one thing. In request header, we will send either headers or query parameters or URI parameters. In the request body, we usually send the application data need to be transferred between the applications as application/JSON or application/XML or using any other content type. While responding back over the response, the similar way how we are sending through request header the headers, query params, URI params, while responding back we will respond back HTTP status codes and reasons. Those are 200 OK, 400. There are a lot of status codes we have for REST services. Okay, next we are going to develop a REST service as Hello Mule API application. In this I am going to develop a REST service. Then what a REST service need? It need HTTP method. We can take it as GET. Next we need a protocol. We will take it as HTTP. Next we need a host. We will take it as localhost and port as 8081. Base path as Hello Mule API. Subpath as Hello Mule. URL all together, the URL is going to form like this: http://localhost 8081 Hello Mule API, then Hello Mule. So we should aware of this, what REST service contains. Then we would able to develop a REST service easily. Let's go to Anypoint Studio. Click on File. click on new Mule project. And what is the name we decided to have? Hello Mule API. Let's give it as Hello Mule API. Click on finish. The application has created and Hello Mule API flow Mule configuration file has generated here. To develop a REST services, MuleSoft has provided a module called HTTP. Under HTTP module, we have these many connectors. To develop a REST service as a provider, we need to use connector called listener. Drag and drop here. It will open a properties tab in the bottom section to configure all the REST service required details. What it can expect, we can assume, right? What it can expect, obviously it will expect host, port, base path, subpath, and what type of method it is. Here if we observe, we have this connector configuration and path. Let's click on plus icon, and here by default it has given as HTTP protocol. I am good with HTTP protocol, we can go ahead with it. And coming to the host, we have 0.0.0.0 and also local host. Both are same. The local host can be treated as 0.0.0. So let's keep as it is. And by default port has generated as 8081. Let it be. So the connector configuration can able to provide some default values for us. Coming to the base path, let's take it as Hello Mule API. Now click on OK. Then why it was asking these details separately as a configuration? Because if I want to develop one more REST service in the same project, it can be doable and we can make use of same HTTP listener configuration. That is the reason in MuleSoft we have configurations concept, which configurations can be reusable. Those resides under global elements. Now go back to message flow. Then next we need to provide the path. So just give it as hello-mule. And we also need to provide the method. If we don't provide the method, by default it take it as get. Let's give the method, all should be capital letters. Let's save here. And we are done with REST service development. That's it. If we know what a REST service contains, those are protocol, HTTP protocol, host, port, base path, subpath, and a method. That's it. We would able to develop the REST service. To test the service, whether it executed or not, to check it, let's have a logger component here. What is the significance of logger component? In Java, we usually write system.out.println to print something on the console. Whenever we write a small program, we write system.out.println, right, to print something. In C++, we write cout. In similar way, we use logger to print something on the console to check whether the program executed and flow is running or not. Let's give here as welcome to Mule. Save it. Now we are going to deploy this project. The Endpoint Studio has supplied with inbuilt server. So we need not to provide any server. Simply right click here, click on Run Project, Hello Mule API. Now we see some logs are flowing in the console. This determines that how the application is deploying. Since this is a first application, let's see how the execution is happening, and from coming sessions I will pause the video and resume it back without waiting for complete deployment. Anyway, let's see in this video how the logs are flowing and how the application is deploying. And it was saying that initializing Hello Mule API. And we can see the status as deployed. Let me right click here and do clear. So all these console logs will go. Now let's go to Postman and prepare the URL, then make the request. First we need to choose the method. We have taken our REST service method as get. We can see these many HTTP methods are available, but mostly we use get, post, put, patch, delete. In slide I have mentioned it as update. It should be put. Sorry for that. Let's take HTTP, port we taken, colon, slash, then host we taken as localhost, then colon, the port we taken it as 8081, and base path we taken it as Hello Mule API. Okay, go to Postman, paste here, and subpath we taken as Hello Mule. Let's copy it and slash put here. Click on send. Go to console and we can see this has printed welcome to Mule. That means we would able to develop the REST service. Now let's enhance this message little bit more. Let me put it as welcome to Mule Chinna. Let's save it. If we observe the console, this application is redeploying automatically whenever I made the change, because under project by default build automatically option has checked. This is the reason whenever we do some changes, the application will be automatically redeployed. If you do not want to do that, let's uncheck it. But whenever we do some change, we need to stop the server. We can right click here and click on stop the server, or also we can click on this red mark. Let me do that. Even though it has redeployed, to showcase I have stopped the server, then right click here, again deploy the project. The application has deployed. Now let's make the request again. Click on send. Now we can see the enhanced method as welcome to Mule Chinna. Okay, this way we do development of REST services. That's all about this session. We'll see you in next session. Thank you. Happy learning.